When we think in terms of nature, we belong to the planet, not the planet to us. When we think in terms of energy, when we think in terms of flow and alignment, on a human level, giving and receiving in balance aligns us with the nature of nature. We belong to the planet, not the planet to us. I'm in the flow. So if I say I'm in the flow and I'm living in the flow, and it's not just for an hour, but I've got it to where that's really true for me, regardless of what day it is or where I am or who I'm with or what I'm doing. If you ask me, Stephen, personally, I'm going to assume that giving and receiving are in relative balance in my life, because that's part of what being in the flow means. Again, if you ask me. So building a capacity to receive for those of us for whom that muscle has atrophied, right? We all know people who are so good at giving and they suck at receiving, right? So the good givers, oh, she's amazing, she's fantastic, she's so open-hearted, she's, which is great. We need and want people like that in the world. But honestly, if that person goes home at the end of the day and is drained of all their energy, and maybe even if you ask them, scratch below the surface, a little bit bitter or resentful about some of the imbalance that they're starting to feel, then that's really no different than somebody who's just a receiver and doesn't do much giving, right? So when we're in the flow, when we're in balance, when things are kind of humming for us humans, again, if you ask me personally, inherent in that will be a balance of giving and receiving. So keeping things in balance. And, when I remember years and years ago, somebody saying, well, giving and receiving are the same thing. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? They're the same thing. And you can't, but now I firmly believe that they really are. So if I really want to give you something, and because of the joy that giving brings to me, and the joy that it brings to me to give you this one particular thing because of this thing and you and me and our relationship and all of that, I can only really complete that transaction, if you will, if you are willing to receive it. So I don't even get to give until and unless you are ready and willing and able to receive. So by receiving, you give me the gift of giving. And by my giving, I give you the gift of receiving. And that's, both things are equal. So an intention for yourself in your harmonious living intention, for example, to just be conscious of being in the flow of giving and receiving all the time, then what happens? It's not usually a quid pro quo. Here's a quarter, and then you turn around and give the quarter to somebody else, and then somebody turns around and gives you a quarter all in 42 seconds, right? We're not really talking about that. We're talking about just constantly being. It's not going to unfold in a linear way. So then you're walking down the street and somebody walks, into your space, and you have a little exchange, and she wants to give you something, and you're like, oh, that's so lovely. This stranger just handed me this crystal, and it's just, I'm going to receive that. If nothing else, at a minimum, I'm just going to practice receiving it, because it's in my intention to give and receive great, easily and readily all the time, right? So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's giving what on any given day, but I'm going to move through the universe. I'm going to move through my life, and all the time I will be giving, and all the time I will be receiving. And then we can really depersonalize a lot of the stuff, right? Because then we have a lot of rules and regulations about who should give us what and who shouldn't, right? But then we learn to lose that, and we trust that we're creating our own reality. And I want to live in a world where I freely give and I freely receive, and I freely give and I freely receive, and I freely give and I freely receive, because I want to be in the natural rhythm and flow of life. And it requires me to be able to do that, and to not judge what shows up when it shows up and through what vessel it's showing up. Sometimes it's somebody we know and love and appreciate, and we give them a big hug and a thanks. And sometimes it's a stranger that we meet for 12 seconds and never see again. And on and on and on, in terms of what vessels things show up through.
I love that. It's so beautiful. I've never thought of it like that. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.